to shift his seat from Torgau here to Wittenberg, and he was a very committed Catholic, and he wanted to have his own church. Therefore, he started to build this church just in 1494 to 1496, and he also built a castle here where he was living. Because this church is so close to the castle, it is called also Castle Church. And he designated this church towards the University of Wittenberg that he founded in 1502. And the university used this church for the mass every morning. All the students, all the professors came here to worship. And that was also used for lectures here, this church. And then Martin Luther, in 1517, he knew next morning, All Saints' Day, big Catholic holiday, all the professors, all the students will come to worship here. And therefore he used the chance to nail his 95 Theses here at this door in order to encourage the other professors for a disputation about the abuse of indulgences. And his idea was not to create a new church. His idea was to have a scientific discussion with other scholars. Therefore, he wrote this thesis in Latin, the language that was spoken at that time at the university. He didn't do it in German. Later, his friend Justus Jonas, he translated the thesis into German, and then the thesis, they were running throughout Germany within 2 weeks, and everybody knew about this thesis then. Yeah? But now look at this door. This is a bronze door. Are you able to nail on a bronze door?
It was wood.
That was wood. But in 1760, there was a war here in Germany, and the other troops came, and with cannon balls, they hit the church, and the church burned down, except the outer walls. Everything else was completely destroyed. And then it took more than 200 years until the Prussian king then decided to restore the church. And they did it very nicely inside, but in the style of the 19th century. And the idea was not to have a worshipping place, the idea was to have a memorial hall of the Reformation. Therefore, inside there are all these statues of the reformers. Inside there are the coat of arms of more than 360 noble families and cities that were supporting the Reformation in the 16th century. And you can also see over there, there's a ribbon with some words. Ein feste Burg ist unser Gott. A mighty fortress is our God. And this shows you also the king, they wanted to demonstrate this is a place to commemorate the Reformation. And now look at the roof or the spire of this tower. It is a little bit unusual for a church. They shaped this spire according to the shape of the crown of the Prussian king, in order to express their gratitude that he offered to renovate this building. Right now, a major reconstruction is going on because there was a lot of moisture here in the wall, and they had to suck out the moisture. Inside, they repaint the whole building. They built a new heating system and a new floor and so on. Therefore, it is closed right now. You can't go in because the floor is open, or they are working on it. And 2nd of October next year, this church will be...
2nd October. Okay.
October
So we come next year then.
Yes. And look, what is really funny, since this was a church building that was owned by the government, owned by the prince-elect. And then later, all the governments, following governments, they owned the church. And after the Second World War, the communist government of the GDR owned a church building. And they were responsible for maintenance. And still today, this church belonged to the government of the federal state of Saxony-Anhalt. But right now, they are renovating it, and then they hand it over to the church, and then the church will be responsible in the future to
renovations and maintain
this building here. But this is also to make sure that this will be used now for worshipping purposes and not only as a museum. And during the GR, or when the GR was founded, they wanted to convert it into a museum. Because they said, we have a building, a church building, we don't need it, so we will use it as a museum. But then some people in Wittenberg said, no, we need it as our worshiping place. And at that time in the constitution, there was a right for the people, if there is a desire to meet your religious desires, then you can get such a church building in order to use it. So then they gave it to the congregation, and since that time there we have also a small congregation. All the centuries before, this was not a church building for a congregation, it was a church building for the government or for the university.
Okay.
So therefore we are looking forward to renovate it next year, or to reopen it next year after renovation. The city church is already renovated. And the so-called mother church of the Reformation
Martin Luther
preached more than
2000 times.
Exactly. See, you learned already something today.